No, he said that he couldn't get out, you see. That's what made me put that in. He tried to go out that way, but didn't, so it wasn't open.
My dear Lestrade, I congratulate you on the precise quality of your notes. It is true that you have missed everything of importance, but you have spared me the trouble of eliminating the trifles and pointed me in the right direction. I hear familiar steps on the stairs.
Loud steps.
Please be seated, Watson. You must be famished. Lestrade was kind enough to bring a copy of his notes, hoping it would be of assistance in this affair.
Indeed.
You can study them now and enjoy your meal. Please take your time, Watson, because bad digestion weakens our ability to reason.
Holmes, you will get no argument from me, as this dish is delicious.
We will go to Sherringford Hall with Lestrade when you're finished with your meal.
I must read the documents Holmes gave me.
Okay, the crime. Report on the investigation. The case of Sherringford Hall. Inspector in charge, Lestrade. The 14th of October, 1897. Before 11 o'clock in the evening, Sir Melvin Bromsby, engineer, architect, and contractor of renown, was slain by a single gunshot in his mansion, Sherringford Hall. The crime, the author of which is still undetermined, took place in the ballroom during the reception arranged by the victim in honour of his daughter's return to England. Yeah. Just 2 pages. She had spent the last several years at finishing school on the continent. Despite the presence of 100 witnesses, no precise testimony was obtained regarding the exact circumstances of this horrific act. Nevertheless, based upon certain evidences, there is a presumption of suspicion towards the daughter of the victim, Miss Lavinia Bromsby. Whoa. A lot of notes here. Instrument of crime. Report by Inspector Lestrade, 14th of October 1897. Instrument of crime. The bullet extracted from the corpse of the victim corresponds to the calibre of the revolver found in Miss Lavinia Bromsby's purse. This purse found on the floor was near the door from which Miss Lavinia Bromsby first appeared after the mortal shot was fired. All of the witnesses agree that the sound of the shot originated at or near this very same doorway. But the gunpowder was from the next one. The revolver is an old small bore Wright, which is also a highly reliable weapon. This would explain why the only shot fired was mortal, despite a distance of several dozen feet and a difficult angle. Miss Lavinia claims that the victim personally gave her this revolver before the crime, for the purpose of her protection against some unnamed threat. This account can be supported by the fact that these models are impossible to find on the continent, where Miss Lavinia has spent these last years. Premeditation can be excluded if she is found to be the murderer. Why? Oh, because you would have just got that the day. True. But it could still be premeditated, and she's just... I mean, she's not guilty, but it could be premeditated, and she's then got a new weapon. The motive. Report by Inspector Lestrade, 14th... The motive. The victim, even if he had few or even no friends, still might not have enemies capable of committing this act. His strong unpopularity among his domestics was compensated by the attractive wages he paid them. His business partners spoke of him as tough but fair player, according to the criteria of this environment. Getting plurals incorrect. Terrible. The fact that he spent long years in India and solely devoted to his business preclude any crime of jealousy or passion. Finally, the modus operandi doesn't correspond to the typical revenge killing by this or that Hindu sect, though these things do happen. The motive then must apply to his holdings or something quite personal. Another line of reasoning that points to Miss Lavinia Bromsby. According to H. Grimble, the partner of Sir Bromsby, her relationship with her father becomes so strained that Sir Bromsby visited his daughter only once during these past 6 years. A local constable must contact Mr. H. Fowlett, the attorney of Sir Bromsby, in order to recover the essential parts of his last will and testament, if it exists. The development of the crime. Report by Inspector Lestrade, 14th of October 1897. The development. With regard to the distance and the angle of shooting, it would be reasonable to suppose that only an expert marksman could have succeeded in making such a shot, but the factor of probability still exists and admits other possibilities. The testimony of the group of cabmen who were in the ideal place to observe such matters saw no one leave through the service door after the shooting, and up until the time when one of the domestics locked it from the outside. All the windows are equipped with thick bars, and the fortuitous presence of the maid at the stairwell indicates that no one ascended to that floor. The testimony of Miss Lambert, the governess, indicates that she noticed only, housekeeper, indicates that he noticed only 2 people absent from the ballroom during Sir Bromsby's arrival. Mr. Horace Fowlett, the victim's attorney, and Miss Lavinia Bromsby, the domestics, had been specifically instructed that all these guests were to be present during Sir Bromsby's entrance. I have been persuaded by all accounts that anyone who had left the ballroom had returned before Sir Bromsby's entrance. Since Horace Fowlett hadn't gone through the gates of the mansion of Sherringford Hall, the only person whose movements were unaccounted for at the time of the shooting is Miss Lavinia Bromsby. The chivalrous testimony of a young infantry officer, who has confirmed that he saw her standing at the threshold of the door, can be the only reason for not charging her with murder. As Miss Bromsby was in a state of deep shock last evening, according to the local doctor who examined her, her interview was delayed until today. Scotland Yard report. Police report. General information about the man called Sir Melvin... The man they call Sir Melvin Bromsby. Sounds like a professional wrestler. No official involvement as a defendant in any criminal or civil matter. No appearance as a witness in a criminal or civil law case. Complainant as to a robbery committed at a fair stand in St. Bartholomew on July 1861. The judgment of the court was favourable for the Crown. So, was he the accomplice or something? I'm confused. Melvin Bromsby. Dear Sherlock, here is all the information that we know about the late Sir Melvin Bromsby. Born in 1842 in Staffordshire of a modest family, he finished his studies of architecture and civil engineering owing to the scholarship and financial assistance of his elder sister, who owned a florist shop. After he was awarded his diploma, he was employed by a small firm which he later left for a large enterprise, the Salinger Company. In 1872 he was sent to India to assist in the construction of a bridge for the army. At the end of this project, in 1874, he left his position with Salinger and founded his own enterprise in Bombay. At that same time, he courted Carlotta Campbell, the second daughter of Colonel Campbell, OBE, Commander-in-Chief of an important local garrison. The military appreciated Bromsby's straightforwardness and business acumen. Thus, the army entrusted him with many contracts for constructing barracks and other types of work. In 1877, he was married to Carlotta. His business flourished, and he hired a young accountant, Mr. Grimble, who later became Bromsby's personal assistant. An ideal candidate for the position, Grimble excelled at his various administrative tasks, so Bromsby's business has continued to prosper over the years. In 1879, Carlotta Bromsby, née Campbell, died giving birth to her daughter, Lavinia. Bromsby's business enjoys great success. However, the fact that he has been awarded nearly all of the Army's civilian contracts has aroused the jealousy and suspicion of other British businessmen in India. Motive. It has been rumoured that he gained his fortune through the exploitation of his Indian labourers and British work. Motive. Poor working conditions and miserable wages. In 1884, upon learning of the death of his elder sister, he decided to return home and prepared the transfer of his business interests to England. He also invested his money in several cement factories, which permitted him to reduce his costs further and thus increase his profits. In 1891, he sent his daughter to study at a finishing school near Saint-Moritz in Switzerland. She has just returned to England several days ago. He was awarded a knighthood in 1892. There are several cases where his name has been mentioned because of suggested fraud with his contracts and ill usage of convict labourers at his factories. Should have a U in it. Such practices are common in London business circles, and his wealth allowed him to avoid scrutiny by the courts. Thus, when his behaviour is weighted within the current climate of commercial morality, he is neither angel nor demon. Assuming his business assets are included, his current fortune would be measured in the tens of thousands of pounds. This would make him one of the wealthiest contractors in Britain. I wish you good luck in this case. Nothing else. There we go.
All this is very interesting.
No, it isn't.
According to the evidence, it seems that the shooter was not in the ballroom or the corridor. Where was he then?
Are you finished, Watson? Shall we go? Let us return to Sherringford Hall.
Why are you wearing a deerstalker? You don't wear a deerstalker. You only wear a deerstalker if you're going out in the country, and Sherringford Hall does not count as the country. Rage. A little upset. I really want to go there. I really want to go to 221B Baker Street. You can actually visit the Sherlock Holmes Museum. Never done it. Alas. what was the point of that scene? Couldn't you just cut to this bit? Oh well.
Sirs, please, go right in. Please wait here, gentlemen. I will see if Miss Lavinia is receiving callers. She's in her room.
That was a completely pointless scene.
Well, Mr. Grimble, I didn't expect to see you here at this hour.
I am worried about Miss Lavinia, needless to say. I also thought I might learn something of interest about the investigation. This difficulty, if it persists, can do great harm to the business.
That depends on who inherits, because if she doesn't inherit, it doesn't matter, really, does it? We've heard about a strained relationship.
Sir Bromsby and Miss Lavinia had rather strained relations, it seems.
Well, Sir Bromsby and Miss Lavinia have never got on very well. Of late, their distance had grown due to the influence of several incidents.
Well, of course, it would be strained to begin with, because in her he would see his wife who's now dead, and that would be problematic. But several incidents?
What sort of incidents, precisely?
I do remember one instance in India, where Sir Bromsby attacked a friend of Miss Lavinia. He was our native cartman's son. It seems he spilled a jug full of water that was intended for Sir Bromsby to wash his face. Bromsby began cursing and thrashing the boy before his daughter's very eyes. Miss Lavinia took her friend's part and spoke to her father most rudely.
The devil, you say? What occurred next?
There is no one in the whole of India who would have dared address Sir Bromsby in such a manner. He stayed closeted in his office for the entire day. The next day he fired the carter. But despite these incidents, I am still sure that Miss Lavinia sincerely loved her father.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm sorry, but I have to go.
All right, as you wish. I shall remain here.
So this is the ballroom without the ridiculous tables. Right. Okay.
I have to leave you, sirs. I need to verify certain things.
Yes. I'm sure I could just wait around and do nothing and she wouldn't come down, so I've got to do something. Just working out what I need to do, it's just the problem.
The more we consider the facts of this affair, the more mysterious it becomes.
The important thing is to be precise and rigorous in your analysis. But at Scotland Yard, we know this well.
Chuckle.
Reminds me a bit of bad business I resolved. I believe it involved a theft of sticks from a polo team.
I have myself engaged in this sport but a few years ago.
Really?
Do you enjoy the sport of polo, Mr. Grimble?
Can we go to Sherlock Holmes?
No.
Please.
You cannot imagine the benefits of this sport. To achieve
Holmes,
perfect
please.
form and union, man with horse.
A little like the waltz, eh?
Exactly.
It's going to be more interesting.
Except that with this sport, mounting is at full speed, which complicates things singularly. I don't follow you.
The team from Brixton, in my opinion, is the finest example of how polo should be played.
Perhaps they may well be. But what would you say about that last match of the Old Goats Rangers?
They were absolutely splendid. But what of the Brixton team?
Weren't they the cause of some ruckus about a matter of corruption?
Yay. Thank you. Oh. Avoiding polo. What's the point? What was the point of that? Let's converse with